Hello, I'm your host, Jan Henrik Hochhausen, and I welcome you to this new series on the fictional world of Mytas. Mytas is a world filled with nations, cultures, religions, and most importantly to us, history. It was created by a community of which I am a part of, a Discord community at that, and I will link the server to anyone who is interested in joining us. Today's episode will not be on the famous Nicatorians and their conquests, nor will it be about the Qian dynasty and its countless civil wars. Instead, it will be about the various tribes, cultures, and civilizations surrounding the Nicatorians as to better understand the new environment that they developed and grew up in. Think of today's study as more of a preview than the main show. With that out of the way, let us begin. First, we do have to start with the earliest history of the Nicatorians, just to get a bit of pretext to them as well. The Nicatorians started out as agricultural tribes in the Nacleonica river valley, which this city is named after. These agricultural tribes, also known as the Proto-Nicatorians, shared many aspects with their local neighbors. The difference was that these Proto-Nicatorians lived on the coast, meaning that even if they lived in villages lying further inland, that they would have had access to fish and other marine goods. These local products would have produced a lot of wealth for the local nobility, as through trade with their more inland-lying cousins. This, during the time of the Proto-Nicatorians, would have allowed for the mass production of bronze weaponry, again allowing for warrior culture to develop. Seen here is a Proto-Nicatorian nobleman. Now, let's discuss the site of NOA-1. NOA-1 is by many a Mytas historian to be considered the oldest settlement on the site that would later become Nacleonica, the capital of the Nicatorians. The first settlements to be built on the site were small towns, with the three largest probably having been the sites of NOA-A, NOA-B, and NOA-C. A was by far the largest, with the archaeological findings suggesting an early temple constructed here. These temples would have been long or round houses, with painted walls to make them appear far more ethereal. It would have been also in these temples where meetings between various leaders would have taken place. As for all that we know, the Proto-Nicatorians, even the early Nicatorian state, had no central authority figure, but various councils of elders instead. For material remains found here, sacrifices to the gods, even human ones, would have been made too. NOA would become the so-called Old City District of NOA-1, which itself will become the city center of modern-day Nacleonica. NOA-B and C were similar in size to NOA-A, though they lacked any temple buildings and/or any significant burials. Imagine a landscape of coastal terrain with steep cliffs and sharp rocks lying to sea. A land where fertile land was hard to come by. A land where atop of the cliffs and above the sea flat grasslands ruled. A long-since home to hunter-gatherer tribes and settled people alike, this was the landscape of Ratania. A landscape in which the Chalcedoni found themselves in. The Chalcedoni, closely related to the Nicatorians, were, unlike their settled cousins, semi-nomadic tribes of hardy warriors. They rode on horseback and chariots, fought with long bronze lances, and clad themselves in next to no armor. They were fast, their borders always changing, always adapting to their harsh home. Unlike their Nicatorian cousins, they did not trade with outside civilizations, preferring combat, pillaging, and looting more. Even the Nicatorians were not safe, with archaeological findings supporting the idea that multiple raids from up north were indeed conducted. The Chalcedonian nomads of these northern realms were not as barbaric as many claim though. They were in fact great artists too. with their craftsmanship being able to rival the skilled workers and scholars of the civilized nations. Their engravings shows the scenes of horses galloping, tribal conflicts being carried out, and possibly even tribal leaders. Sadly, we do not know anything for certain, as no written nor oral records survive to our time. Worse, we do not know much of anything about the Caledoni, as after the Nicatorians conquered their lands, while the noble cavalry was incorporated into the foreign army, the artifacts were not, but were instead melted down and into coins. The Pausanian archipelago islands off the west coast of Nicoteria proper will be the birthplace of Western Artopan civilization, philosophy, military traditions, and even writing. In fact, it is here in the modern-day city of Acropolis that the first West Artopan writings start to appear, imported from the east via trade. Moreover, Acropolis, though nowadays inhabited by Pausanian-speaking peoples, was in ancient times inhabited by Arvadians, the ancient Arvadians. They were masterful traders, bringing with them new types of armor and writing, even a new type of metal, iron. Without these ancient Arvadians, iron, and with that, steel, would have not been introduced to West Artopa for centuries to come. It is here, too, that we see the first calendars being developed, also an import from the east. The dates given below text stelae give us a rough idea of when these texts were written, giving us a glimpse into that ancient civilization. As an example, the text was written by a certain Astophan of Arasapis, with the text being dated to about 650 BT. It reads the following. Speaking now is Astophan, esteemed Carissos of Arasapis. For I write this message as to voice my dissatisfaction and complaints with the entire city of Acropolis. Your merchants promised me marble, but instead sent me granite. Your nobles promised me a wife, but instead gave me an old hag. Your city promised me trade, yet all I got was nothing left in my hands or pockets. Have you not known, people of Acropolis? The gods of fortune is like those who talk with treachery in the soul. For my conclusion is that I will not speak to your city anymore, for I shall commit myself to not enter the city. This text alone shows that regional trade by the 7th century BT was already well established. For those who do not know, Arasapis was a merchant town located in the very north of Buferiga, but Acropolis was located in the very south, in between a small mountain range that divides the island. By the 5th century BT, trade between Buferiga and the Nacleonica River Valley was already well established as well, with the first Nicatorian burial showing us the use of Buferigan-made iron swords and Ovidian-type bronze armor. Between the 7th and 5th century BT, something else would happen as well. The ancient Ovidians were native to a small island off the coast of Artopa. This meant that as more cities were founded, less and less land, and with that, resources were available. Now, think. If you were an ancient Ovidian prince seeking to establish your own city, but all of your other family members already took over half the island, what were you going to do? Well, simple. You take some colonists and head off to unknown lands. In this case, many colonial outposts from the island of Buferica were founded at the coast of Latania, home of the semi-nomadic Caledoni. It's from these colonists that we get many of our modern myths about the savage Caledonians, how they would pillage cities, had no art or mind, and even gods. With the introduction of iron weaponry, new types of armor, and trade routes, the Nicatorians flourished. But most importantly for us, the ancient Arvadians introduced a writing system to the Nicotarians for easy communication. Through this, the Nicotorians were able to record their own history, with the first written records dating back to the 6th century BT. The Nicotorians being a warlike people, the first texts are obviously about combat. Interestingly, the records tell us more about the loot gained from the battles, more so than the battles or expansion itself in the earliest days. Here is one such text by an unknown source, circa 4-3 BT. The resolutions of the battle fought against the Talati. Equally many men were killed on both sides. Battle was fought on a hill. Hill was located in front of the river Beira. Things gained from the vanquished: 28 bronze helmets, 50 iron helmets, 4 spears, 80 shields, 124 tunics, lard in a quantity of 32 bars. Things of great importance gained through the battle: the shield of the enemy commander, the head of the enemy commander, the horse of the enemy commander. This was a general preview of the ancient Nicatorians and their surroundings, a preview to a much larger project. Link to the Discord is in the description. Feel free to join if you want to. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Vai comandar, o caminho da frente nunca vamos parar. Cumba na técnica, estou sempre em ação. Representar hip-hop, vou dar sempre a minha lição. A minha visão é sempre aberta. Informação oculta, gajo do back, penetra, Angola na back, Rússia na back, Sadiq Stad, representar.